Good morning and welcome to this morning's worship. The Lord be with you. Remembrance Day is a national opportunity to remember the service and sacrifice of all those that have defended our freedoms and protected our way of life. We remember the armed forces and their families from Britain and the Commonwealth, the vital role played by the emergency services and those that have lost their lives because of conflict or terrorism. So it's an important day to remember. Now, I happen to share an office at the moment with Mr. Nash, who many of you will know. He works out of St. Catherine's for the charity School Home Support. Before this role, he did something very different, which I think makes him the right person to speak about the importance of Remembrance Day. I asked him a few questions about his job in the Royal Navy, beginning generally with what his work involved, and then why it matters that we continue to mark Remembrance Day every year.
I joined the Royal Navy when I was 16 in 1987, and I left 24 years later in 2011, so 24 years service in the Royal Navy. So basic training, my basic training was undertaken at HMS Raleigh in Tor Point in Plymouth, and that's where young sailors still do their training today at HMS Raleigh. And that was, basic training was 12 weeks. And then I did my specialisation training at HMS Vernon in Portsmouth, which is now Gunwharf Quays. That's where I did my specialisation training, mine warfare training, which involved learning to mine sweep and also mine hunt on the simulators, for the sonar simulators. So I started off as a junior seaman, mine warfare, and then I progressed through the rates by taking exams to lead in hand, and then petty officer. And then through selection I was selected as a local acting chief petty officer just before I left. My job during that time was mine clearance. So I served on Hunt class MCMVs, mine countermeasures vessels, and these were plastic so they didn't actuate the magnetic mines. As a young sailor, I was part of a 15-man team on a ship. And it was my job to stream the equipment out the back of the ship to locate the mines if we were mine sweeping, and also I was a sonar operator if we were looking for mines on the seabed. And then as I progressed through the rates, instead of actually putting the stuff out, I was in charge of either streaming the equipment out the back end or directing the sonar to find the mines on the seabed. Mines are designed to either be made contact with, buoyant mines, that's very similar to the ones that you see on Second World War movies, and they blow a hole, actually explode and cause a hole in the side of a ship, which then causes it to sink. Or we've got ground mines which sit on the seabed and they explode, creating a bubble that comes to the surface, and that physically lifts the ship out of the water and that breaks the ship's back. It's a very, very cheap way of slowing down a force's progression to an area, and you don't actually have to lay mines, you only have to report that you have laid mines, and then that causes everything to happen to locate the possible mine. No, it wasn't, because of the training that I'd had. I was confident in the training that I had and the equipment that we had, so it was exciting more than nerve-wracking, knowing that we were capable of locating these mines and dealing with them in a safe fashion. Self-discipline, having the ability to do what I'm asked when I'm asked without question. Because this was important. This is important in any of the armed forces, that you just accept what you're told when you're told, and you do it without question, and you have trust and faith in the people that are giving you the orders, that they are the correct orders. I learned a lot about myself over the 24 years, about the challenges that I could deal with, the long hours that I was expected to work. As an example, during Operation Granby, we did 43 days of 6-hour watches. So me in particular, I was up at 8 in the morning, went to bed at 2 in the afternoon, back up on watch at 8 in the evening, and then going to bed at 2 in the morning, and we did that for 43 days as part of the conflict that we had. Yeah, the first time that I got to put my training into effect was when we were part of the coalition force in 1990-91 that helped liberate Kuwait after it had been invaded by Iraq. The Iraqis had laid real mines to slow down the coalition force, and I joined in 1987. This was 91, so 4 years after I joined, we were actually hunting mines for real off the coast of Kuwait, and thereafter we were called upon numerous times to deal with Second World War mines that were still in existence around the coast of Britain, and then also we were involved in clearing the redundant ordnance after the Bosnia conflict in the mid-90s, where RAF planes had gone out on bombing raids, not actually dropped the bombs on the enemy, and therefore were required to release them into the sea before they landed, and we were required to then go and find these bombs once the conflict had finished, as part of the Geneva Convention. It was a mix of both excitement and fear. I think the excitement as a 19-year-old to be part of something so big with such a huge goal to help liberate a country was exciting, and what I saw, I'll never forget some of the stuff that I saw once we actually we were the first ship into Kuwait after the conflict. So some of the stuff that I saw, I will never forget. I think as a nation it's important to remember servicemen of past and present, for what they did in previous wars, First, Second World War, but also for the more modern conflicts that we've had in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think it's really important to remember those people. For me personally, Remembrance Day gives me an opportunity to remember and make contact with people that I've served with, and also gives me a chance to remember the sacrifices that my own family have made, and that's my wife, my children, my mum, dad, brother and sister, because every time I went away, every time I left home on a Sunday night after having a short weekend leave, seeing my children in tears, I'll never forget that, and that's a huge sacrifice, and I think that's forgotten by many people, is that servicemen and women leave behind their families every single time they deploy, every single time they go back after a weekend leave.
Our prayer is, Dear Lord, help us always see what others have given us at great cost to themselves. Help us live lives of gratitude for the sacrifices others have made for us. Amen. And our reflection is, we live in a nation where we enjoy many freedoms and opportunities. How often do we think about that? And how often are we grateful for the sacrifices made by others that mean that we can live in freedom?